A worn-out wallet, its leather cracked and faded. Not worth much. But when I opened it, I nearly dropped it from shock. Life has a funny way of surprising you when you least expect it. At my age, I thought I had seen it all: wars, heartbreaks, technological nightmares. Don't even get me started on those touchscreen phones. But that morning, as I stood on the sidewalk of Maple Street, holding an old, battered wallet, I realized fate still had a few tricks up its sleeve. My days were simple. Wake up at 6 a.m., stretch out my stiff joints, take a slow walk around the neighborhood, then stop by Rosewood Cafe for my usual: a black coffee, no sugar, and maybe a muffin if I was feeling indulgent. Nothing extraordinary, just the predictable rhythm of an old man's life. But today, something changed. I was about to cross the street when my foot nudged something small and worn out. A wallet. At first glance, it was nothing special, just cracked leather barely holding together. Could have belonged to anyone. Normally, I wouldn't pry into someone else's belongings. But curiosity is a nasty little thing, and it got the better of me. I picked it up and flipped it open. No cash, just a few tattered cards, an old driver's license, and that photo. A small, faded picture, tucked into an inner pocket. A boy no more than 8 years old, with curly brown hair and bright, curious eyes. I felt my stomach tighten. I knew this face. But from where? For a long moment, I just stood there, wallet in hand, my mind racing. Maybe it was one of those cruel tricks memory plays on you when you get older. Maybe I was confusing him with someone from my past. But deep down, I knew that wasn't it. I needed time to think. And for that, I needed coffee. At Rosewood Cafe, the usual morning crowd was already in place: Mrs. Perkins gossiping about her neighbors, old Tom struggling with the crossword puzzle, and Linda, the sharp-witted barista, keeping the place running. As soon as I walked in, Linda shot me a knowing grin. "The usual, George?" I nodded, sliding onto my favorite stool by the window. But my usual routine of sipping coffee and watching the world go by was interrupted. I kept looking at the wallet, at that photograph, at the name on the faded driver's license: Michael Carter. That name meant something. I just didn't know what. Linda leaned over the counter. "What's with the face? You look like you've seen a ghost." I hesitated, then handed her the wallet. "Found this on the sidewalk. Name ring a bell?" She squinted at the ID. Michael Carter? Doesn't sound familiar." I sighed. "Figures. Thought maybe I'd turn it in to the cops." Linda smirked. "Or you could play detective." I let out a dry chuckle. "I'm too old for that." But even as I said it, I knew I wasn't going to just drop this. Somewhere, deep in the corners of my mind, something was stirring. I just had to find out what. Finding someone in the modern world should be easy, right? Wrong. Especially when you're 72 years old and technology hates you. I don't do smartphones. I don't trust them. Last time I tried using one, I ended up accidentally setting my text size so large that I could only read one letter at a time. Took me 20 minutes just to decipher a message from my nephew that said, "Happy birthday, Uncle George." So I did things the old-fashioned way. First stop, the post office. "Michael Carter?" the clerk repeated, raising an eyebrow. "We don't give out personal addresses, sir." "Come on," I grumbled, tapping the wallet on the counter. "I'm not some scam artist. Just trying to return this." She sighed. "Sorry, rules are rules. Strike one." Next, I tried the police station. A young officer, probably not a day over 25, typed the name into his system and frowned. "We've got an old address, but nothing recent." Strike two. I was just about ready to call it quits when Linda, ever the helpful troublemaker, chimed in again. "George, why don't you let me look him up?" she suggested, pulling out her phone. I groaned. "Fine. But if that thing starts giving me ads for wallets later, I'm blaming you." She snorted and typed away. "Okay, here we go. There's a Michael Carter living about 20 minutes from here, in Willow Creek." Bingo. With my best lead yet, I borrowed my neighbor's rusty old pickup truck. My own car had seen better days. It made a noise like a dying walrus every time I turned the key. Willow Creek was one of those quiet suburban neighborhoods where the lawns were always perfectly trimmed and kids still rode their bikes in the street. I pulled up to a modest house with a blue door, feeling a strange sense of anticipation. Taking a deep breath, I stepped up to the door and knocked. A few moments later, it opened. The man standing before me was in his 50s, with graying hair and the kind of tired eyes that held stories. Yes. I held up the wallet. Are you Michael Carter? His eyes flickered down to the wallet in my hand. And then something strange happened. His face went pale. He looked back at me, not at the wallet, but at me. And suddenly, it was like the whole world tilted. You don't remember me, do you? He whispered. My stomach twisted. There was something in his voice, something familiar. Something I should have known. But I didn't. Not yet. Michael's words hung in the air, thick with something unspoken. You don't remember me, do you? I felt my grip tighten around the wallet. Something about the way he said it, soft, almost hesitant, sent a chill down my spine. I cleared my throat. Can't say that I do. Michael exhaled, running a hand through his graying hair, his expression a mix of disbelief and something else, something deeper. You saved my life, he said, his voice quieter now. Over 60 years ago. I let out a short, incredulous laugh. Kid, I think you've got the wrong guy. I don't go around saving lives. He shook his head. No, I know it was you. And then he started telling me a story I had almost forgotten. I was 8, he began, his gaze distant, as if looking through time itself. It was winter, a bad one. My family had just moved to town, and I didn't know many people. One afternoon, I went exploring near the woods behind our house. Thought I was being some kind of adventurer, but the storm came fast. Too fast. My breath hitched. I got lost, he continued. The snow was so thick, I couldn't see more than a few feet ahead. It got colder, darker. I remember falling, face first into the snow. My hands were numb. My legs wouldn't move. A memory stirred, faint but persistent. I thought I was going to die out there, Michael said. And then, you found me. My chest tightened. You were just a teenager, he said, his voice thick with emotion. But you didn't hesitate. You took off your coat and wrapped it around me. You held on to me the whole night, kept talking to me so I wouldn't pass out. You told me stories, promised me I'd be okay. The words hit me like a freight train. I remembered. A bitterly cold night. A lost boy, half buried in the snow. My arms wrapped around his shivering body. I had never told anyone about it. It was just something I had done, an instinct, a moment of human decency. I never knew what had happened to the kid after that. Never even learned his name. Until now. Holy hell, I muttered, sinking into the nearest chair. Michael let out a breathless laugh, shaking his head. I spent my whole life wondering who you were. I never got to thank you. And then, after all these years, you show up at my doorstep, returning my damn wallet. I rubbed a hand over my face, trying to process it all. Well, I said finally, at least now I know why that picture looked familiar. Michael chuckled, but his eyes were glassy. Yeah. We sat in silence for a moment, the weight of the past pressing down on both of us. Then, because I couldn't help myself, I smirked. You know, if I'd known you were going to grow up and get all emotional about it, I might have left you in that snowbank. Michael laughed, a real deep laugh, and shook his head. Too late now, old man. You're stuck with me. I snorted. Figures. And just like that, 60 years melted away. The living room was warm, filled with the quiet hum of a life well lived. Family photos lined the walls, books stacked neatly on the coffee table. It was a home, not just a house, but a place filled with history, love, and years of stories. Michael handed me a cup of coffee and settled back into his chair. I can't believe this, he said, shaking his head. After all these years. I took a sip, savoring the rich bitterness. Yeah, life's funny that way. He nodded, then studied me for a long moment. You ever wonder why things happen the way they do? I exhaled, more than I cared to admit. He smiled, a little wistful. That night changed me, George. After you saved me, I always knew I wanted to be someone who made a difference. That's why I became a teacher. I wanted to help kids the way you helped me. I looked at him, really looked at him. A man who had spent his life shaping young minds, inspiring them, guiding them. And I realized something. This wasn't just about a wallet or a lost boy. This was about how one small act of kindness had rippled through time, shaping a life in ways I never could have imagined. I set my cup down and leaned forward. Let me ask you something, kid. Have you ever saved someone? Michael frowned. What do you mean? I gestured around the room. Your students. The kids you've taught over the years. Have you ever helped one of them through something tough? He hesitated, then nodded. Yeah, a few. I smiled. Then I guess that makes us even. Michael chuckled, shaking his head. You really haven't changed, have you? I smirked. Nah, just got older. A comfortable silence settled between us. Then, after a moment, Michael said, You know, my family would love to meet you. My wife, my kids. I've told them about the man who saved me, but I never thought I'd get to introduce them to you. I hesitated. For years, I had gotten used to being alone. Not in a sad way, just in the way that happens when life moves forward and people drift apart. But maybe, just maybe, life was giving me a second chance at something. I nodded. I just might take you up on that. As I stood to leave, Michael followed me to the door. We shook hands, firm, steady. Then he said, You really don't know how much this means to me, George. I looked at him, at the boy he had been and the man he had become. And for the first time in a long time, I felt something settle in my chest. Peace. As I stepped outside, the evening air was crisp, the sky painted in soft shades of twilight. Life had a funny way of tying things together. And tonight, I was glad I had found the thread.